Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to part 4 of 10 films that should get a Criterion or Eureka or Arrow Blu-ray release. This is a series that will just run and run because there's just so many films that deserve more attention, and obviously these 3 labels do a really good job of commentaries and extras. So without further ado, let us start. So the first film is In the Line of Duty, the FBI Murders. Now this is a TV movie that I first saw probably about 30 years ago, in the 80s, and it is a really good TV movie. Obviously TV movies generally have a kind of stigma of being a bit cheesy or low budget or not really that great, but this is fantastic. This is based on a true story about an FBI manhunt of 2 guys who robbed and killed people during those robberies. It stars David Soul in a role you've probably never seen him before, as a thoroughly nasty piece of work, and Michael Gross. Again, he's the charming big game hunter survivalist from Tremors, but in this film the 2 of them play not very nice people. That's an understatement. And the FBI agents are really so well written and so well acted that it's fairly rare, just like the 7 Samurai, you actually care about these people when they don't survive, because it does end in a fairly bloody shootout in a residential area in Florida. So much so that it was such a mess that it says at the end of the film the FBI actually used this case as a training model for how to deal with armed suspects. It's just a great little film, but again, because it's a TV movie, it's probably been forgotten about, but it certainly deserves a reintroduction to the film watching community. So the FBI Murders in the Line of Duty. The second film is Michael Haneke's Funny Games. This is the original, not the American remake with Tim Roth and Naomi Watts, which I've never actually seen, and frustratingly is available on about 3 different Blu-ray editions. This is Haneke's, well, I was going to say his most challenging film, but one of his most challenging films, and it's really about screen violence and how we as an audience lap it up if it's just in the action movie genre, or the hero delivers one-liners and stuff, but when it's actually in your face and done properly, as in cruel and nasty and ugly, then some cinema goers have a problem with it. And this is really a simple tale of 2 young men all dressed in white who turn up at a family's country home and torture them and generally threaten them. Again, it's a hard film to watch. It's meant to be, because Haneke is essentially saying, why are you actually watching this? I think that was his response when it showed in Cannes. You should walk out, you should switch it off. If this is a film you watch over and over again, or a film that you really enjoy, then you should really take a look at yourself. But it's a really good film and it deserves a Criterion release. So next on the list, again these are in no order, it's just 10 more films. It's Intacto. which is an interesting little Spanish film. It stars Max von Sydow. It's a great performance by Max von Sydow. It's maybe a forgotten performance by Max von Sydow. He's not in it very often, but as usual, he doesn't need to be to give a great performance. I think he's up over 150 films now. And this film is really about luck, and not a lot of it is explained, which is good. It's about a group of people essentially being whittled down to have a competition with the luckiest man alive, who's a famous gambler. Some of the trials involve being blindfolded and running through a forest, and obviously trying not to get hit by trees. It's just an understated little film, fairly cryptic, and it just has a wonderful performance by Max von Sydow, or Sydow, sorry, and Tacto. Again, I'm trying not to spend too much time, but I do tend to ramble. The next one's a great wee independent film called Lawn Dogs. This is one of Sam Rockwell's early performances, and it's fantastic as a kind of gardener who goes round wealthy houses and strikes up a bond with a little girl who doesn't really fit in and is a little bit of an oddball. But obviously her parents, Kathleen Quinlan and Christopher MacDonald, don't really approve. It has a kind of fairy tale element. Baba Yaga is referenced quite a lot, and it's quite similar to Atom Agoy's Sweet Hereafter, where the Pied Piper was a kind of motif in that film. And it's just a great wee film, a little black comedy, and a really nice film as in showing the kind of underbelly of the middle class America, with the ring-fenced communities. And it's just a little bit odd. It doesn't have a Blu-ray release as far as I know. With all these films, please let me know if they do have a Blu-ray release. But as far as I know, Lawn Dogs doesn't, and it should. The next one was allegedly Kirk Douglas's favourite one of his films, and that's Lonely Are the Brave. This is a 1962 modern western. It also stars Gina Rowlands and Walter Matthau, who as usual gives a fantastic performance. This stars Kirk Douglas as a cowboy in a world where the cowboy lifestyle and ethos is kind of dying out. He still rides a horse. I was going to say drives a horse, but that's, you don't drive horses. He rides a horse, but obviously there's cars, and he really doesn't want to be fenced in, but there's more and more boundaries to his lifestyle and challenges. And it's really quite a dark film. One of the classic scenes is he has a bar fight with a one-armed man, which leads to his arrest. Yeah, it's a great performance by Kirk Douglas, great performances by everybody, and it's a really underrated western. It'll probably appear in my top 20 westerns if I ever get around to doing it. Yeah, and it really needs a better release and more exposure. That's Lonely Are the Brave. So the next one is a really interesting little documentary by Errol Morris, and it's Mr. Death, or the rise and fall of Ed Luchter Jr. And this is about a strange little man whose father was involved in executing prisoners, and he kind of went into the business as well, and he was involved with making executions more humane, if that's possible. That might be an oxymoron. And involved in lethal injections and trying to make lethal injections as painless as possible. I'm sure we all have our views on capital punishment. So you're on his side. He's a strange little character. You're on his side for about half the film, and then it kind of changes because later in his career he got involved with a court case involving a Holocaust denier, and due to hubris and pride and ego, he somehow became an expert witness for the Holocaust denier. He went over to, I think, Auschwitz and Belsen and took rock samples of the gas chambers to prove or to find out whether gas was ever actually used. So he sent these, he's not a geologist, he's not really a scientist, and he sent these rock samples to a lab but didn't tell them where they were from. So the test that they did on it isn't actually how you test for gas, but the results came back that there wasn't any gas. So he pretty much went in an open court or whatever and said there wasn't any gas used in the gas chambers. So strangely enough, he lost his job, his career, his wife, and it's really an interesting documentary. I mean, I don't think that he's particularly, he's not an evil person, he's not, I don't think he's really a Holocaust denier. He just kind of was naive and got caught up with the wrong people. Again, if you've seen the film, let me know what you think. But it's a really interesting Errol Morris documentary, and I think it deserves more exposure. So the next one is another odd little film. It's The Music of Chance. This stars James Spader, Mandy Patinkin, a great turn by Charles Durning, Joe Turkel, and the great M. Emmett Walsh. And this is about gambling. This is about James Spader and Mandy Patinkin, who decide to try and win lots of money off of two old guys in their country house. But things don't go according to plan, and to pay back their debt, they have to build a wall in Charles Durning's back garden. Doesn't sound very interesting, but it is. It's kind of an absurdist, black comedy, nihilistic, existentialist farce. I haven't used that description for a while. It's a great performance by M. Emmett Walsh, one of the great underrated actors along with Harry Dean Stanton, and this is just a fine performance. There's no particular resolution to it. If you're expecting a conventional narrative and things happening all the time, you might be disappointed, but it's just a fun little strange film and deserves an upgrade. The Music of Chance. And the next one, speaking of fun little films, it's Mr. Vampire. This is a Hong Kong comedy horror from the 80s, which I remember seeing late at night when I was a teenager. Allegedly there's now 3 of these, but I did look on Amazon, and parts 2 and 3 are like £200 on DVD. There's no Blu-ray as far as I'm aware, but again, let me know if I'm wrong. This is just a really good horror comedy. The vampires hop about for some reason. The guy on the picture of the disc is the vampire hunter expert, and it's all about rituals and things like that. There's 2 bumbling heroes who get into all manner of hijinks and trouble. There's romantic interest, of course, and it's just a great fun little film. It's something that Arrow should really do a Blu-ray release. If anybody's listening, that would be fantastic. Mr. Vampire. And we're down to the final 2, again, no particular order. This is a personal favourite, it's North Dallas 40. I'm a big NFL fan, and this is the closest film to really showing you what the NFL was like in the 1970s. Now, there's no official team. It's just a professional football team. But this was written, it was based on a book, but it was written by a guy who played for the Dallas Cowboys, and J.D. Stradlin's in it, sorry, who gives a great performance as a Bible-thumping head coach. And anybody out there who knows anything about the Dallas Cowboys, it's pretty much a Tom Landry impersonation. Nick Nolte gives a great early performance as a grizzled veteran whose knees don't really work that well anymore, and the team's trying to get rid of. And it really shows what professional football was like in the 70s, as far as the partying and the drinking, the drug abuse, painkiller addiction, and just the players being treated like pieces of meat rather than human beings. And again, it's rough around the edges, it's maybe a little bit sloppy in places, but I just love it. But then I may be biased, but North Dallas 40, please can we have again possibly another Arrow release, North Dallas 40. And the next, or the last one in this top 10, or this 10 films, is Oh What a Lovely War, which is a bit odd because it's not on any Blu-ray release, which I find quite surprising. Directed by Richard Attenborough, and it's his World War I musical, based on a stage play, I believe, and it's just shot beautifully. It's got great songs, but obviously at the heart of it is the tragedy of World War I. It's got an amazing final shot, which obviously I'm not going to spoil if people haven't seen it. And it kind of follows the lives of a family of men who get sent to World War or volunteer for the World War, and obviously not all of them make it back. And it's mixed in with all the generals and kings and royalty all kind of dancing around a ballroom and making chit chat and making jokes, and then it also cuts to like the trenches and the wholesale slaughter of millions of people. Yeah, it's bizarre that it hasn't actually got a Blu-ray release. It is Richard Attenborough after all. Granted, the subject matter isn't very cheery, but it's an important film, even though it is a musical. Yeah, so that is the end of this video, and it's a lovely cheery film to finish with. But thanks for watching. Again, let me know if you've seen any of these films, what you think of them, if there are any Blu-ray editions available, please let me know, and leave a like, and subscribe if you'd like to see some more videos. So this is Solitary Ronin, Solitary Ronin Films, saying thank you very much and have a good day.